Good morning. My name is Tara, and I would like to thank you for joining us for today's Dharma family service. We will begin the service with a moment of quiet sitting. Reverend Kuwahara will strike the bell, and we will sit for 1 or 2 minutes to quiet our minds and prepare to hear the Dharma. Then he will strike the bell again, and we will continue with the service.
Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu.
Reverend Kuwahara will now lead us in the chanting of Shishinrai, followed by Jusei-ge.
Gagon choseiga hishimu 志願不満足政府上昇が我無良好不意大摂取不採処便具政府上昇が我史上仏道妙正長実法空虚未小門政府上昇学利欲人少年上映主凡行死具無浄土一生天人死人力縁大公不生無才道少女三苦妙交際集約難回避知恵言滅死公門案閉塞小膜道通達全宗門高僧上満足異様老実法日月中寿期天候音符言一種解放像公正功徳法上大集中説法四苦供養一切仏具足修徳本元年信上満徳意三害を女仏無下知通達未不詳願学営利投資最小尊志願若国家大戦を感動国書天人東内妙慶ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ観にしく読平等聖祭道本菩提心往生安楽ナマンダーツナマンダーツナマンダーツナマンダーツナマンダーツナマンダーツナマンダーツナマンダーツナマンダー。
Please join us in singing the Gatha, Amita's Guiding Light. Please join us in reciting the Golden Chain 2.
Please join me in Gassho. The Golden Chain. I am a link in the Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also that of others. May every link in the Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.
It is our great pleasure to have a special speaker from UK today. We have his name is Reverend Dr. Enrique Galvan Alvarez. So he's a Jodo Shinshu priest from the Honganji, Nishi-Honganji tradition. He was born in Canary Islands, but he spent most of his adult life in the United Kingdom. He is a member of Shin Buddhist Fellowship UK and received Tokudo ordination in 2019 in Kyoto, along with other Jodo Shinshu Buddhists from the UK, Canada, and the USA, and Hong Kong. Enrique works as a university lecturer and is involved in a research project about the globalization of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. He can speak Spanish, English, and Portuguese, and has conducted extensive field work among Jodo Shinshu communities in the US, Brazil, and then Argentina. So please listen carefully to his message. And then thank you, Enrique Sensei, for joining us.
Please join me in Gassho. Nyorai no ekko ni kinyu shite, gansabushin no uru hito wa, jiriki no ekko o sutte hatete, riyaku ujo wa kiwa monashi. The person who enters the Buddha's dedication of merit realizes the mind that aspires to become Buddha, completely abandoning the dedication of merit through their own power. They benefit sentient beings without limit. Namanda, Sunamanda, 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 Sunamanda. Namanda, 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 Sunamanda. Namanda, Unamanda, Unamanda. Good morning, Berkeley. So my name is Enrique Galvan Alvarez, and you might remember me from the time I lived in the US in 2018. And I hope you're all well throughout these very difficult and uncertain times. And I do hope not only that you're well, but also that we will be able to meet face to face before too long. So I would like to start my talk by thanking Kuwahara Sensei for this opportunity to share the Dharma, and also to tell you a little bit about me. So I am a Jodo Shinshu minister from the UK. I am talking to you today from Manchester, England, and I became a minister 2 years ago in 2019, together with Reverend CJ from BBT, who I'm sure you know well. And I became a minister really thanks to Kuwahara Sensei again, who helped us and guided us and supported us every step of the way. So if I am here today, it is thanks to him, among many other people. So thank you very much, Sensei. So today I thought I will tell you a little bit about Jodo Shinshu in the UK, which is quite different from the US. And unlike the BCA, here in the UK, we do not have temples. There are 5 ministers, there's 5 of us, and we all have day jobs. And the other interesting thing is that our members, who are between 20 and 30, they are spread all over the country. So the island of Britain is roughly the same length as California, the state of California. It's much thinner though. And we do have people living at the very top, at the very bottom and pretty much everywhere else in between. So today I am talking to you from Manchester, more or less in the middle. So it's very, very rare that all of us get together at the same time in the same place. In fact, it has happened in very few occasions. However, in the last year, in 2020, and because of the pandemic, we were all stuck in our homes. And for the first time, we decided to start meeting regularly. And now we meet once a week, like you do at BCA temples. So this is a very small community, but through Zoom, we have been able to come together. And it's only now that we are starting to realize how much we have missed each other throughout the years. What we do normally is discussion. So we select text by Shinran Shonin, or a text from the Jodo Shinshu tradition. Recently, we finished discussing Tanisho, and we try to learn from each other, to listen to each other, and to share the Dharma together in that way. And throughout this past year, 2020, we have been dealing with many issues. This has been a very difficult year for a lot of us. First and foremost, of course, the loss of loved ones, economic hardship, financial hardship, isolation, frustration, inability to make any plans. But we have also been paying attention to issues of social justice, conflict, and suffering that are happening all over the world. So these issues have come up in our discussions, in our Dharma discussions, quite a lot throughout the last few months. And so I was also very fortunate as a result of those conversations to be invited to take part in the We Hope Seminar 2020. We Hope is a seminar that happens every year and is organized in the United States between Higashi and Nishi Honganji. And last year's We Hope seminar was focused on social engagement, which was very relevant to the times. And so when I was at We Hope, I found myself sitting there, realizing that I was painfully aware of many of these issues. However, I didn't know what to do about it. So I sat there thinking, what can I do? And I was not the only one. Many of us were in the same position, and we kept on asking, what can we really do? And then came Reverend Jeff Wilson, Jeff Sensei from Canada, who I'm sure you are familiar with. And he really shocked me out of my doubt and out of my confusion. And he said something extremely insightful that stayed with me. He said that we, instead of asking ourselves, what should we do or what can I do, we should ask ourselves, what needs to be done? Because when we ask, what can I do, we are very much focused on ourselves. It's about me. And this reminded me of this wasan by Shinran Shonin, which I've just shared with you. So this wasan talks about how when we accept the Buddha's help, when we accept the Buddha's helping hand, and this is the echo, the dedication of merit. When we accept it, we realize the heart that aspires to become Buddha. And this heart that aspires to become Buddha is not just an aspiration for ourselves to become awakened, is also the aspiration to free all sentient beings from suffering. So it has that element of compassion, great all-encompassing compassion. And so when that happens, when that heart, that mind starts growing in ourselves, we give up our dedication of merit through self-power. In other words, we give up our self-centered attempts to help others. And paradoxically, when we give up, when we let go of our self-centered attempt to help others, we really start benefiting all beings without limit. And this is very important, I think, when we're talking about issues of social engagement, but also it applies throughout our lives. So reflecting on this wasan really brought me back to what Jeff Sensei was saying. Sometimes we need to abandon our own preconceived ideas, our own self-centered attempts to help, our prejudices, our biases, and really see what is there, what is actually going on and what needs to be done. And when we do this, then it becomes apparent, how can we help? So this led me to reflect about how those two ways of engaging with the world manifest in daily life. So this is obviously about jiriki and tariki, self-power and other power. And so when we try to help in our own terms, when we try to do things the way we see them, we are imposing something on others and on situations that we encounter ourselves in. And this is the opposite of listening to other people. When we listen to others, when we open our hearts and open our ears, we really understand, we really see clearly what needs to be done. And this is the opposite of trying to help in an aggressive way in our own terms. This is like trying to fix the world. You know, that approach of trying to help in our own terms is approaching a situation with a preconceived idea and trying to fix it as we see it. And this is the opposite of coming from a place of gratitude, from a place of openness, a place of being receptive and being open to see what is actually there and what needs to be done. So this is how I see the tension between what can I do and what needs to be done. It's the difference between self-power and other power. And I think gratitude is key to understand how we can engage in the world and in our lives in a more skillful way. In Jodo Shinshu, we talk a lot about gratitude, but what does it really mean? We talk a lot about gratitude in the context of saying we are indebted to the Buddha. We reflect on how much we have received and how little we have given. And so gratitude is this expression of wanting to repay the benefits we have received. But what is really gratitude? How does it work? In order to understand it, I always go back to Master Shantao Zendo Daishi, who was a Chinese master from the Tang Dynasty. And this is an excerpt from the Ojo Raisan, particularly from the Shoya Raisan, which is a text we chant sometimes. To spread the great compassion everywhere and guide others is truly to repay the Buddha's benevolence. For me, this is the best answer to the question, what is gratitude? So what gratitude really is to share the benefits that we have received, to share the great compassion that we receive from the Buddha's helping hand. And so in Jodo Shinshu, we talk a lot about being indebted to the Buddha. And of course, debt is a metaphor. When we accept the Buddha's helping hand, when we receive the qualities of the Buddha, the mind and the heart of the Buddha in the form of Shinjin, we contract a debt with the Buddha. But as I say, debt is a metaphor, but this debt is a very peculiar one. Normally with debt, you pay back, right? But in this case, this is not a debt that we can pay back to the Buddha. That's not something we could ever do. Also, the Buddha doesn't need it. So how do we repay the Buddha's kindness? We do so by spreading the liberating qualities that we have received, by passing them on. So this debt that we contract with the Buddha is a debt that moves ever outwards, never back. We don't pay it back, we pay it forward. And it spreads, like the Buddha's compassion, it spreads everywhere, like the Buddha's light that goes throughout the 10 directions. So this debt becomes the engine, if you want, for our engagement, because it's moved by wanting to share what we have received. Those liberating qualities, acceptance, trust, joy. But how can we do this in practical terms? And here comes the challenge, of course. So I will try to tell you a few stories that have happened to me or that have happened to people I am close to. The first one is a negative example of how not to help and is a cautionary tale. And it's something that happened to me. I'm a bit ashamed to tell you, to be honest, but it happened to me many years ago, 20 years ago. And I was in the underground, in the tube, like your BART, and there was a blind man trying to navigate a flight of stairs. And so he turned to me and asked me for help. It's like, can you grab my arm and help me up the stairs? And of course, I did that. And so we got to the end of the stairs, and then he said, "Thank you very much. You've been very helpful." And I said, "Don't worry. I'll carry on. I'll hold on to you until we come to the exit. I'll guide you all the way to the exit." And he said, "No, it's okay. I'm fine now. Thank you for your help." And I insisted one more time, No, it's really fine. I'll help you." And he says like, "No, please let me go. I'm fine." And so, of course, I let go, and I was ashamed. And I realized I had made that situation about me. I was too focused on what can I do, on what I want to do, how I want to help this man, that I was not listening to what he was telling me. So the key is to listen. And that brings me round to the next story, which is from a member from England. And she has been listening to the Nembutsu for a number of years. She's been coming to our meetings, and she's somebody who's very aware of social issues and very involved. And so when Black Lives Matter emerged in the past in America, she was very supportive of the movement. But when it came around again last year, of course, she was very supportive of what was going on in America. But when it came to the UK, she found herself doubting. She found herself being overtly critical and having a hard time to accept that here in the UK, we also have a problem with racism. Of course, we think America is way worse, but we have a hard time recognizing that problem here. And she was thinking, well, maybe it's not that bad here. And so at that point, she realized she was not listening. She was approaching this problem and the suffering of the people on this island who experienced discrimination and racism and oppression. She was really not listening to those stories. She was trying to analyze them. She was trying to find arguments to justify herself. And so this made her realize how important it is to listen. And when she told me the story, it really made me think of Mon Sokushin. And you have the kanji there. And this is a very common phrase in Jodo Shinshu, which means to hear or to listen is to trust. To hear is to believe. And this is, of course, talking about hearing the Nembutsu and realizing Shinjin. But I think it's also very relevant to the way we engage with others. And she realized that she had to open her heart and open her ears and listen and trust, believe the stories of those who were suffering. And this was a turnabout for her. And I think listening is key to how do we engage with others in general, but especially in issues of social justice and social activism. And I think also that taking a stand and marching is very important. And it's good that it needs to be done sometimes. However, we also need to build alternatives to the dystopian world that we see. And I think it's very important that we also create spaces where people can be themselves, feel accepted, feel safe, and find fulfillment. And of course, some of these spaces are already happening, but we need to keep on creating more. I was greatly inspired by a talk that Reverend CJ gave a couple of months ago about their experiences in Osaka in Japan and the family they found there, and finding a space where they could be who they are and they felt accepted, they felt heard. And I think as we create these spaces, by listening to each other, by opening to each other, we are creating a different world. And eventually, by creating those spaces, we can transform the whole of society. Very slowly, unfortunately, but very firmly, very safely. And so it is key, as I said, to listen and to keep on listening constantly. And not just in those spaces that we create, those alternative spaces. That can be the temple, that can be the Sangha, can be the family, can be our circles of friends. But as we do that, it's very important that we keep on questioning ourselves. Because as we know, self-power doesn't go away so quickly or so easily. And until we die, it continues in different forms. But the more aware we become of it, the less power it has. And the more we realize that, the more we realize, the deeper it goes. It's a dynamic process that continues our whole lives, but it's very worthwhile to engage in it. So I think it's essential that we keep on asking ourselves certain questions. Questions like, am I unconsciously reproducing some of the attitudes that I am fighting against, such as internalized racism, homophobia, ableism? Often these things, even though we are intellectually opposed to them, often we don't realize how much of that is part of who we are. And it's okay to acknowledge that we do have these things, we carry these prejudices with us. The more aware we become of them, the less power they will have on us. Do my relationship to those around me reflect my values? In other words, am I walking my own talk? I believe that, any Dharma talk, well, I believe that especially for me, that we all give the Dharma talk that we need to hear most. And I definitely need to hear this, and I need to ask myself this. But are we really walking our own talk? We need to constantly ask ourselves that. Am I sharing the benefits that I have received? In other words, am I spreading the mind of great compassion? If I am here, it's because I've been inspired by these teachings, because I've been inspired by the Nembutsu. So as we have been listening to the Dharma and saying the Nembutsu for years, in some cases, maybe for a few months, maybe for a few weeks, that's okay. It's always good to reflect on what have we received and are we sharing what we have received. And this is really to repay the Buddha's compassion. This is really to express gratitude. But in order to do that, we first need to accept the Buddha's helping hand. We first need to let go, however little, however limited way, we need to let go of our self-centeredness, of our self-power. So let's accept the Buddha's helping hand by remembering this wasan by Shinran Shonin. Please join me in Gassho. Nyorai no eko ni kinyu shite, gansabushi no uru hito wa, jiriki no eko o sutte hatete, riyaku ujo wa kiwa monashi. The person who enters the Buddha's dedication of merit realizes the mind that aspires to become Buddha, completely abandoning the dedication of merit through their own power. They benefit sentient beings without limit. Nam man doubts, 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 nam man. Nam man dou, nam man dou, nam man dou, nam man dou. Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Enrique Sensei, for giving a wonderful message. So I'd like to say thank Tara for being a chairperson for today's service and then taking care of chat room on the YouTube. ありがとうございました. Thank you. And then thank you, Bradley and Myron, for your help during today's live stream service. ありがとうございました. And then thank you, Emiko-san and the music team for the beautiful Gasa for today's service. ありがとうございました. Thank you very much. And then thank you everyone for joining today's service. Now the announcements are on the screen. If you can, please join us. Again, thank you very much for attending today's service. Please take care and stay healthy. See you next week. ありがとうございました. Thank you.